guys, it's Kristen from Swagger Magazine. We have a very special guest today, the one and only Andy Biersack, who is on Amazon Prime's Paradise City. Andy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, and you nailed my last name, by the way, which is it's increasingly less uncommon, but there are a lot of weird exceptions that are made for my name. Like, people will see that it's Biersack and then they'll want to correct it for me and make it sound less harsh. So they'll say like Biersack or something that sounds fancier, but it is not. It is the harshest pronunciation, which is Biersack.
Now, just a personal kind of question is, are you like preferring to go by your last name now, or should we call you Andy Black? What do you prefer?
I have so many names, whatever is preferable to you.
I know you as Andy Biersack, so we're going to go. We're gonna go.
I've always been fine with my last name. I'm close with my family. I like it. So I just have different names for different projects, but it's not an attempt to try to shed my name.
Awesome. So how did you originally get involved with American Satan, which is the movie that inspired the TV series Paradise City?
Yeah, I've known Ash Alvinson, who's the director, creator, writer of both the American Satan movie and the series Paradise City. I've known him since I was like 17 or 18. I came to LA. I dropped out of high school and came to LA to try to, do the band thing and make it in this industry. And I didn't really have any contacts, and there weren't a lot of people who believed in me or what I was doing. And it was kind of a struggle to try to get people to get it in that time frame. In 2009, I was a teenager, and I'm in a band, or trying to build a band that is kind of has throwback elements to 80s and late 70s, early 80s glam and punk rock bands that I loved, and all this stuff that at the time was not, it wasn't in the mainstream consciousness when it came to rock. There was a shift away from the more kind of pageantry or show-based theatricality, and we were having a hard time even getting shows booked anywhere. We were playing, at the time, the only show we could play in LA was Richard Villa, who did our art for years. He allowed us to play in the back parking lot of the skate shop that he was a co-owner of. Like, that's the only places we could play, is parking lots and basements and stuff. So I happened to, through the grapevine, got an email from Ash Alvinson, who has for years run Sumerian Records and everything, and we had signed a really small independent deal with this company out of Ohio that was a really tiny record label, but it was the best we could get at the time, and they were the only label that really believed in us. But suddenly I had this call from Ash to come in, and he just was like, I believe in this. I think this is going to be huge. I think you guys are going to be great. And even though I can't sign you on my label end, I'm also a booking agent and all these other things, and I just want to get involved with you and help facilitate your career. And so from the very jump in my career, Ash has been a champion of me, and then a champion of the band once the band was fully formed. And we were on a different label and didn't necessarily work directly together, but he was always there if there was ever an opportunity or something that he thought of me for. So in the summer of 2015, we were on tour, and he came to a show in San Diego and showed me this pitch deck for a movie, saying, this is this movie, American Satan. I'm writing and directing it. You're the lead in it, if you're interested, and showing me literally like images of me in the context of this world that they had built for the pitching.
That's so
and
cool.
I was just immediately like, hell yes, anything, because to me, anything that he had ever done within the industry, he had such a proven track record of, unlike pretty much anybody else I've ever known when it comes to this industry, of if he sets his mind to do something, he will make it happen. And so I knew it was going to happen. A lot of times, in this town especially, you have meetings and phone calls with people for ideas that they have that will never come to fruition. And so it's almost like, oh yeah, cool, that would be a great idea. But with Ash, it always is, if he's going to do something, he's going to do it, not only do it, but he's going to do it really well. So that was kind of the birth of all that. And then the continuation of it, it was just the movie did well and was on Showtime and got a lot of traction, and has found its audience, kind of a cult following over the years. And so the audience was there for the show, and we went into production.
Well, I've seen both myself, and I have to say I'm a fan of the movie and of the show. So you guys are doing great stuff. You're excellent, by the way. Now, I have a question about, you played Johnny in American Satan, and then now you're playing him in Paradise City. How did you kind of make that transition to where he is at in his life from American Satan to Paradise City?
Well, it's kind of interesting on a personal level. When we did the movie, I was like, I think within the month, I had just kind of gotten sober and was making a lot of life changes for myself. And then I was playing this character who was falling prey to drug addiction and alcoholism and everything. And so it was kind of it was a difficult emotional task to, in some ways it was easier because I could kick into things that I had recently experienced. I was never a hard drug user, or at least addicted to anything like heroin or anything like that, and had never done it. But the idea of drug use or alcoholism or all these kind of things were not so foreign to me that I couldn't understand, kind of, at least on an emotional level, what the character was going through. So doing the scenes where I'm overdosing and things in the movie, I was able to kind of at least on an emotional level understand where the character's journey was going. The distinction between the two is that now, by the time we shot the show, I'm several years sober. I'm in a very different perspective in my life. And I was doing now a character who was newly sober, in Johnny's positioning in the show, and being able to use again my own personal experience and kind of have the distinction between the two, because it's a very tumultuous time. And I know in my experience, when I first stopped drinking, I did my first tour and it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel great. I feel healthier. I look better. I have clarity. And then after that tour, all of this kind of emotional turmoil and anxiety and everything that I had been pushing away with years of drinking came back at such a level that I kind of felt like I was going crazy. And so that's kind of where Johnny is at in this show. He's newly sober. He's trying to make decisions. He doesn't trust himself yet. And he oftentimes is well-intended, but makes the wrong decision. And, he can do some things that are pretty villainous and within the course of the show. And it's interesting to play that.
To kind of play upon what you just said, is there any advice that you yourself would give Johnny Faust if you could talk to him?
Yeah, I think, I think anybody's advice to Johnny would be to tone down the duplicitous nature of your of your emotions. And, but again, it's one of those things where the situations that he's in are so dramatic and over the top and crazy. Not saying that they're unrealistic situations or that the world of rock and roll doesn't exist in these kind of very hyper realistic ways. But I guess the advice I would give would be on any situation to try to find more of your kind of core self and deal with situations on a more personal level, as opposed to being so reactionary. Because in the show, he'll decide what he thinks is right, and then he leans into it, and then he's got to make 17 different phone calls and spinning all these plates, and he's got to make sure this person doesn't know about this thing. It seems extremely stressful and a life that would be difficult to live.
So being in a rock band, do you feel that you relate to Johnny being a rock star? How did that help prepare you for the role?
Our life is very different in the way that our careers happened, or the trajectory of our careers, and how, for me, I was a road dog, as they say, for years and years. I started touring when I was a very young teenager, playing in, as I said, clubs and bars and basements and show swaps and touring in a car and all this stuff, to get to the point where we were playing in front of these big crowds or had notoriety or gold record or anything else. Those are things that took relatively a lot of time. Whereas Johnny's journey is one where he kind of decides he wants to be in a band, moves to LA, and gets a deal, and all of a sudden is internationally famous. And it's not that I relate to that journey, it's that I've seen that with other bands, and I've toured with artists who didn't, quote unquote, pay their dues, and how a lot of people look down on that. And in many cases, I think it's more difficult for those people because they don't have you haven't gone through all the steps to get to where you feel like you can handle a situation. And for me, because I was so young when I started touring, I relate to the idea of like, suddenly you're thrown into this thing. So while I wasn't an overnight success like Johnny, I can relate to the feeling like you're trying to discover yourself in a world that's assumed you already know who you are.
Now, does filming music videos kind of help with the performance aspects of the show for you?
Yeah, it's essentially the same thing. I think it's sort of funny. I mean, I'm not saying this as like a humble brag, but Ben Bruce and I would laugh because when we would do the rock performance scenes, there would be crew people who were not familiar with, musicians and things like that, and they work on predominantly, dramatic films and aren't necessarily on music video sets. But they would, they would congratulate us after takes like we had played the song. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Wow, you guys did great. You sounded great. Like, not necessarily understanding like we're mimicking, and neither of us are actually performing on these songs in the first place. But there is, if anything, it's a nice thing to know that the years of being a professional in this field has made it so that something like that we can do convincingly. And I think I was most impressed by, like Boo Boo Stewart, and obviously he's a musician, as is Bella Thorne, but they don't have extensive rock band touring history. So how quickly they got into it in a way that Ben and James and I have done this professionally for a decade plus. It felt, regardless of people's experience, it felt like a real band right away.
Oh yeah, totally. The Relentless totally feels like a real band, and you guys really mesh well together, I feel. Now, as a musician, has acting always been on your horizon? Can we expect more projects for acting in the future, hopefully a second season?
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of funny how I got into it. I went to a performing arts high school, and I auditioned to get into the drama and vocal music department because I always wanted to perform in any way, and I always wanted to sing. And pretty early on, I was kicked out of the vocal music department because I was trying to be the lead singer of the choir, which it turns out there is no lead singer of a choir. So my temperament did not fit with a choir setting. So all I had left was the drama department that accepted me. And David Roth was my kind of teacher and taught me so much about stage acting and just the idea of acting in general. And he was kind of a hero of mine as a kid, and still somebody who I've talked about a lot as an inspiration in my life. And through that, he started putting me in shows, and I had the opportunity to do some acting that way. And then as a kind of a young teen, I got to, they would send talent scouts to this performing arts school from LA to the Midwest because they were like, oh, we're going to find these Midwestern kids and bring them out to LA for pilot season. So when I was about 15, I got to come out here for a couple months, and I auditioned for like some pilots and commercials. I booked a couple things. I did like a PSA for anti-meth campaign. I did an AT&T commercial. I did some other stuff. And so it was always something I really enjoyed, but my real passion was always music. And so when I got back home from our little stint here, I kind of just said, well, that's maybe something I'll do later in my life. And I really leaned into making the band happen. So Ash giving me this opportunity it's something that's reignited an interest in mine for years, and getting better at it is important to me. I wanted to be better in the show than I was in the movie, and I have so little experience that all I have to play on is the things that I've done. So if we do a second season, my goal is to keep, working on my craft and going to lessons and trying to improve so that I can be, my goal is always to be on par with the professionals around me so that I'm not dragging something down. And as the lead in the show, I've been entrusted with a lot of responsibility. And if I'm not good, or at least capable, then the show's going to suffer because of it. And I don't want to be the cause of that.
For sure. I feel that we'll definitely be seeing more acting from you in the future.
I hope so.
I hope so as well. I hope for a second season. Now, just to ask a question about the Black Veil Brides, I heard you guys have a new album coming out called The Phantom Tomorrow.
Yes.
What fans expect from this album?
It is, I mean, look, everybody always says this, that their new record is the best one, or this is their favorite one. But the truth is, because of the unfortunate nature of our entire year of touring, world tour getting postponed and being at home due to the pandemic and everything else, we had no recourse but to put all of ourselves into this record. And because of that, I feel like we have put together one of the most complete and interesting and nuanced records that we've ever done. And I think the songwriting is at its all-time height. I think that from a producerial standpoint, I think Eric Ron, who produced the record, was the perfect person for it and really understood the band. And I would say on every level, this is, it's just a huge improvement. And I think that we've really found who we are. It's a concept record. There's a big story that's baked into it. I just directed our most recent music video for Fields of Bone, and we're going to be doing another one soon to kind of continue the story. And so I'm a big comic book fan, a big horror movie fan. So being able to put all those elements in there. But yeah, I mean, it's a great record, and I cannot wait for people to hear it.
I was actually going to ask you about making your directorial debut. What was the experience like being behind the camera for a change?
I've been very fortunate that my kind of creative collaborator for, I mean, since we met in 2008. I was literally a teenager, and Patrick Fogarty has been kind of like my brother and sounding board, and he's directed the majority of our music videos, both for the band and my solo career. And because of that, over the years, we have kind of an unspoken language and understand how each other works. And so it's not my first time being behind the camera, because when we would do videos, we would be doing it kind of together. And at this point, the conversation was had pretty early on. You know, he and his wife are expecting another child. His schedule is a little bit tighter. He had called me and said, I really think that, you know, it's time for you to step up, and I think you're ready to do this. And thankfully, you know, I felt also like I was in a good position to do it, and the band all agreed that it was the right call, and so I got the opportunity to do it. I mean, Pat was there every step of the way. You know, Steven at the label was there every step of the way. Emily Palmer, our set designer, was there. So, you know, nothing cool ever exists on an island. So I've been very lucky to be surrounded with great people, but it was a dream come true, and I hope to get to do it again. Amazing.
Now, when you are able to tour again, what's the best way to unwind after a show when you're pumped with adrenaline?
I mean, I can't eat before we play because I get really bad acid reflux, and some of the screamy, yelly vocals don't really work. So I can only have like really bland foods or like protein shakes and things that aren't gonna. So I after every show is like my dinner time, and by the time 11:30 at night rolls around and I haven't eaten since noon, it's an emergency that I eat. So for me, after every show, it's, you know, I go to my little area and in the bus, and I pull out my tablet and put on The Office or Arrested Development or a sitcom that I have watched a million times and know every word to, and make my little weird vegan chicken nuggets or whatever the hell I'm eating, and eat it and sit in the back lounge and try to unwind that way. And then depending on whether, you know, I'm on tour at the same time as my wife, or whether we're in different places, we'll have a FaceTime or a call, and then I try to just keep it chill and go to bed. When I was younger, my move after the show was just to get really drunk. So now I much prefer the way that life rolls for me now, which is to really unwind and be able to kind of reset, because, you know, the older you get in life, the more you respect the circumstances and the opportunities you're given. And to me, putting on the best show every night after night, is what's most important. And to do that, I got to make sure I get adequate rest, and I'm eating well and working out and everything else.
Awesome. You just released a book. You just released a book, yes. They do
and
not
a book
understand, and an audio book.
Yes.
Yes. So what made you want to release this book, and what was the recording process like when you were actually recording the audiobook and telling your personal story?
Well, the audiobook format was really what inspired me to do the book in the first place. I'm someone who's toured my whole adult life, and I discovered years ago that I loved having these audiobooks with me, whether it was people like Penn Jillette or Billy Idol or all these kind of heroes of mine. I would listen to their audiobooks while I'm folding laundry in a hotel room on a day off or whatever it is, or sitting on a plane for hours and hours. I'd download a book before I'd go on these flights. And so I always thought it would be really cool to get the opportunity to do my life story. But the distinction is most of these books that I was listening to or reading are written by people in their late 60s, early 70s, talking about their life. And so much of the first few chapters of these books about their adolescence is completely devoid of detail or interest, because it's so long ago, it's nobody's fault, but it's very long ago in their life that they were 10 years old. You know what I mean? And so those first couple chapters tend to be like skip over things. And I really wanted it to go, well, what if somebody who is, at the time I started writing the book, I was 27. What if somebody at that age starts writing that first part of the book when it's still really close in the rearview mirror? And I can really go into detail about how I got to this point in my life, and not necessarily write my life's memoirs, because, you know, again, being 27, you're not writing your whole life story, because you hopefully have a lot of life left to live. But I wanted to be able to go into detail about my journey. You know, it's important for me to share with people that being a rock musician or finding popularity or fame on any level is not some sort of magic trick. It's not unattainable. I'm a kid from the Midwest who was not given a lot of opportunities and people didn't really believe in, and I've been able to make this happen because of hard work, and a lot of luck. And that's just the truth of it. You have to work really hard, work harder than the person next to you, and catch some lucky breaks and connect with people on a level that's important to them and you. So that was the biggest kind of impetus to write the book. And so, it's done really well, and it seems to be connecting with people and helping people. And that's always the goal.
That's awesome. If you could describe yourself using a rock and roll song, what would it be and why?
Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. As a kid, it was so much of my life of the idea of getting out of where I was and finding myself out there somewhere. And maybe not so much now, because I'm much more comfortable with who I am, but so much of my life was spent just trying to figure out how it all worked. And that song in particular has always spoken to me of like, just, getting out on your own and making it happen and doing what you want to do to succeed in life on any level.
Absolutely. Good choice. How did it feel reuniting with some of the original cast of American Satan, and how quickly did you guys bond with the new castmates for Paradise City?
Yeah, I mean, we were really lucky, and when we did American Satan, that everybody in the cast really got along well, and we created a bond very quickly. And I think that the truth of the matter is that I've known James and Ben we've toured together countless times and have known each other for years and years. So our connectivity is always there. But I thought it would, having met Boo Boo for the first time when we did the movie, we connected right away. And he's his whole family is just incredibly kind and talented people. And, from his sisters to his dad being on the set and all that, it's just a great family and great, wonderful people. I had never met Bella before. But she assimilated right away. And I think, we all just had a great time. I think that we all really understood why we were there, and we got along and had great laughs, but also worked hard and knew that, an independent production like that, your turnaround is pretty quick. You've got scenes you've got to learn, or changes in the script, or new things every day, and your shooting schedule is crazy, and your hours are insane. So you have to have a large level of professionalism to be able to get through it and get it done well. And I think that we were able to balance working hard and also having fun. In certain cases there were times when we'd be doing these live performance shows that we're just having a good time and laughing. Then there'd be other times where we're in scenes where we're crying and very emotional together and everything else. And I think that it's just a great group of people, and we're able to strike a great balance between the returning cast and the new people coming in.
Absolutely. And I love that there was some real life musicians in there. Of course, we have Juliet,
yes,
wife, in there. She killed it. And
absolutely.
It's awesome seeing the crossover. I really enjoyed that myself as a viewer.
Yeah. I think, and also just it adds. I've always said, if you're going to do a music show, best way to do it is to do it with music people. And I think there's an air of legitimacy to the show that maybe other music shows have maybe fallen short with, is that a lot of times you see these shows that are like rock dramas or tour shows or whatever it is, and they're written by and made by people who maybe are fans of music but have no actual experience in the industry. So I think one thing that Paradise City really has going for it is that it's made by people who know what the hell it is to make music and be in the record industry,
especially rock music and in these days. So speaking of rock music, is there a specific song that you would like to see if we get a season 2 of Paradise City? Because I know we had a few cover songs in the first season.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I have nothing to do with any of that, so I'm just along for the ride. Whatever they come up with, it's one of the weird things, not weird, but one of the kind of interesting things in my life is that with most things that I've ever been involved in, whether it's the band or my solo career or my podcast or comic books or whatever else, writing the book, I'm always at the center of the decision making and how things are done. With the show, I'm an actor who's hired to show up and do a good job. So I get to experience all this stuff in a fun way of like, I show up for work and I'm told where to go and I try to do my best. So I don't think that they've made a misstep yet. So I trust Ash and his team to build up whatever the next thing's going to be. And as far as the song choices, they dig deep, man. Like there's some very interesting choices, some songs that I had never heard before that are cover songs that are presented almost as new, that are incredible.
I totally agree. Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time. It sounds like you've been, killing it recently, and we're so excited to have you in Swagger Magazine for June's cover story. So I just want to say thank you so much. You've been fantastic, and I'm excited. I saw the pictures; they look bomb. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.